The freezing rain cut through Melissa's threadbare knit scarf as she hurried down the deserted sidewalk after the library's closing shift. Her fingers, numb and ink-stained from shelving books for 9 hours straight, clutched her bag tight against her chest. Inside were the few dollars she had left, barely enough for groceries for her little brother Sam, let alone the school fees the administration had been hounding her about all week. The wind bit at her exposed skin, a cruel reminder that winter in the city was unforgiving to the poor. The street lamps flickered overhead, casting long, distorted shadows across the wet pavement as she cut through the dim shortcut behind the old industrial district. Melissa had walked this route countless times to get home to Sam, but tonight felt different somehow. The silence was more oppressive, the gloom heavier than usual, as if the city itself was holding its breath. She nearly tripped over her, a small, crumpled form huddled between an overflowing dumpster and the brick wall of a closed warehouse. At first glance, Melissa thought it was just a pile of discarded coats, a common sight in this neighborhood. But then she noticed the gleam of patent leather shoes, pristine, expensive, and the terrified, wide-open eyes staring into nothingness. Dropping to her knees into the freezing slush, Melissa leaned over the girl, gasping at the tear-streaked face frozen in a mask of silent panic. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, dressed in a velvet coat that was worth more than Melissa's entire life savings. It was wildly out of place in this grimy alley, like a diamond dropped in the mud. "Hey, can you hear me?" she whispered, her instincts kicking in. She touched the girl's cheek. It was cold, but not deathly so. The girl was breathing rapid, shallow gasps, but she was completely immobile. Like a marionette, with its strings cut, collapsed onto the concrete. As Melissa scanned the ground for a weapon or a clue, her fingers brushed against a damaged smartphone lying in a puddle. The screen was cracked, spiderwebbed with fractures, but it lit up when she touched it, showing the last dialed contact. Papa. Her finger hovered over the call button. Every instinct screamed that this was trouble, that this child belonged to a world Melissa wanted no part of. But looking at the girl's helpless state, Melissa pressed the button. "Mirella," came the response, a deep, lethal baritone that vibrated through the speaker. This isn't Mirella," Melissa replied, her voice shaky but clear. "My name is Melissa. I found a little girl collapsed on 4th and Main, near the old docks." The silence on the other end was absolute, terrifyingly so. Then, the voice returned, stripped of all warmth. "Yes, but she can't move. She's conscious but limp. I think it might be a cataplectic attack. I'm a librarian. I've read about this strong emotion can trigger temporary paralysis and loss of muscle tone in people with narcolepsy," Melissa explained, falling into the soothing, informative tone she used with frightened patrons or with Sam during a storm. "Do not leave her," the man commanded. The authority in his voice was not something one disobeyed. "I'm 5 minutes away." 4 minutes later, the roar of an engine tore through the silence. A black armored SUV screeched to a halt at the curb, tires smoking. 3 men emerged, moving with practiced, military synchronization. But Melissa only saw him, Arturo Marchesi. He was tall, imposing, dressed in a suit that cost more than her apartment building. But what caught her breath were the dark, geometric tattoos climbing up the side of his neck, disappearing into his collar. He ignored his security detail and knelt beside his daughter, his presence terrifying yet strangely grounding. "You said cataplexy?" he asked, his dark eyes locking onto Melissa's. Melissa nodded, unable to speak. "Mirella," he said softly, his hand bearing the same ink resting gently on the child's head. "It is Papa. You are safe." Slowly, the paralysis began to fade from the girl's limbs. She slumped against him, weeping. Arturo lifted her effortlessly, turning to his head of security. "Find the driver. If he is not dead, make him wish he was." He then turned that laser-like intensity back to Melissa. He reached into his jacket. Melissa flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a black card embossed with gold numbers. "I don't need a reward," Melissa stammered, stepping back. "It is not a reward," Arturo said, his voice gravel over velvet. "It is an assignment. Call this number tomorrow. I have a proposition for someone observant enough to diagnose a rare condition in a dark alley."
Hey there, welcome back. If you're new and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Also, do check back tomorrow, because I will be giving you another story even more interesting with crazier twists than this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let's get back to the story.
The next morning, Melissa stood in the foyer of a penthouse that looked down upon the city like a god on Mount Olympus. The elevator ride alone had made her ears pop. Arturo Marchesi sat behind a mahogany desk in a library that made Melissa's heart ache with envy, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first editions. "The offer," Arturo said, sliding a piece of paper across the desk, "is comprehensive." Melissa looked at the number. It was staggering. It was enough to pay off the loan sharks who had been circling since her father's death. It was enough to get Sam out of the moldy studio and into the specialized science camp he dreamed of. But the coldness of the room, the armed guards at the door, gave her pause. "I have conditions," Melissa said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Arturo leaned back, the leather of his chair creaking. He studied her like a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Negotiating already, Miss Walters?" "Name them." "My brother, Sam. He's 10. I won't leave him alone at night. If I live here, he comes with me." "Done," Arturo said instantly. "The East Wing has a guest suite. He will be safer here than anywhere else in the city. And," Melissa clutched her worn bag tighter, "I am not a nurse, and I am not a mob wife. I am a librarian. I will help Mirella with her studies. I will watch over her, but I want no part of whatever it is you do." Arturo stood up and walked to the window. The gray light of the city outlined his sharp profile. "My business stays outside these walls, Melissa. Inside this house, I am just a father trying to keep his daughter alive. Do we have an agreement?" The move was disorienting. Within hours, movers had packed their meager lives into boxes. Sam was wide-eyed, clutching his tattered book of constellations as they entered the penthouse. "Is he really a mafia boss?" Sam whispered loudly. "The kids say the Marchesi family owns the docks." Melissa shushed him, horrified, but Arturo had heard. He looked up from his tablet, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. "I work in logistics, Samuel. People like to tell stories. I hear you like stories too. Astronomy, yes?" The tension broke, but the underlying danger remained. That night, Melissa found Mirella in the window seat, staring at the rain. The girl looked fragile, like a porcelain doll glued back together. "He scares them," Mirella whispered. "Everyone who comes here. Papa scares them away. Will he scare you away?" Melissa sat down, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm a librarian, Mirella. We deal with scary things all the time. Overdue fines, loud teenagers, coffee spills on rare books." Mirella giggled, a tiny, fractured sound. But as Melissa looked out at the rain-slicked terrace where a guard patrolled with a rifle, she knew she had stepped into a golden cage. It was beautiful, warm, and safe, but the lock was on the outside. Life in the penthouse settled into a strange, quiet rhythm. Melissa quickly learned the unspoken rules. Never ask about the late-night meetings. Never open the heavy oak doors to the West Wing. And never, ever startle Arturo. Mirella was a ghost in her own home, haunting the hallways, terrified that any burst of emotion would trigger a paralysis episode that would disappoint her father. Melissa decided to treat Mirella not as a patient, but as a reader. She brought piles of books into the sunroom: fantasy, adventure, history. Cataplexy is triggered by the brain getting confused by strong emotion, Melissa explained one afternoon, spreading out a map of Middle Earth on the Persian rug. Fear, anger, even laughter. "So, we have to train your brain. We have to make the emotions familiar." They started reading aloud. At first, Mirella would freeze at the exciting parts, her head drooping. Melissa would pause, place a hand on her shoulder, and whisper, "Just a story. You are here. The floor is solid." Slowly, the episodes lessened. Mirella began to anticipate the thrills rather than fear them. One rainy afternoon, Arturo returned early. He walked silently across the plush carpets, stopping at the door of the sunroom. Inside, Melissa was on her feet, acting out a scene from The Hobbit. She was doing a gravelly, dramatic voice for Smaug the dragon, waving her arms. Mirella was clutching a pillow, laughing uncontrollably, a true, deep belly laugh, and she was staying upright. Arturo froze. He hadn't heard that sound in 2 years. He watched Melissa, her hair escaping her bun, completely unself-conscious in her effort to bring joy to his daughter. He cleared his throat. Melissa jumped, flushing pink as she smoothed her skirt. "Mr. Marchesi, I didn't hear you." "I see that," he said, his voice lacking its usual edge. He walked in, bringing the scent of rain and expensive tobacco. He looked at Mirella. "You are? Okay?" "I'm fine, Papa," Mirella beamed. Melissa makes a great dragon. Arturo looked at Melissa, and the intensity in his eyes softened into something akin to awe. She is learning to manage the surge, Melissa explained breathlessly. It's about control. If she controls the narrative, she controls the reaction. Control the narrative, Arturo repeated, stepping closer to her. He invaded her personal space, just enough to make her heart stutter. You are dangerous, Miss Walters. You make people forget the reality of the world. Books are armor, she replied, meeting his gaze. Perhaps, Arturo murmured, looking at her lips for a fraction of a second. But be careful. Paper armor burns easily. Later that night, Sam woke up screaming from a nightmare. Melissa rushed to his room, but Arturo was already there. He was sitting on the bed, jacket off, his shoulder holster visible. He was speaking to Sam in a low, calm voice. Fear is a signal. Samuel, Arturo said. It tells you to be ready. It is not your enemy. Melissa watched from the doorway, seeing the duality of the man, the ruthless crime lord, and the gentle protector. She realized then that her professional boundaries were eroding. She wasn't just an employee anymore. She was becoming part of the fabric of this dangerous family. 3 weeks in, the isolation began to chafe. Morella was doing better, but she was starving for the world outside the glass. Melissa, emboldened by their progress, proposed a field trip to the old downtown library on a Monday, when it was closed to the public. It's safe, Melissa argued over breakfast. I have my keys. It's empty. She needs to see that the world isn't just this apartment. Arturo hesitated, his fork hovering over his eggs. Outside is not safe. She can't live in a box forever, Arturo, Melissa said, using his first name. Dante, the security chief, stiffened. If you want her to survive, she has to live. Arturo stared at her, a silent battle of wills. Finally, he nodded. Dante, secure the perimeter. We leave in an hour. The trip was a military operation, but once inside the dusty, cathedral-like silence of the library, the tension evaporated. Mirella was enchanted, running her hands over the spines of books. Melissa felt a pang of nostalgia. This was her kingdom. She climbed the ladders, showing Sam and Mirella the hidden collections. Arturo stood near the entrance, constantly checking the windows, but his eyes kept drifting to Melissa. You look different here, he said, approaching her in the stacks. I'm in my element. She smiled, dusting off a book. Here. Everything has a place. Everything makes sense. Unlike your world. My world has order, Arturo countered, stepping close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. It is just a brutal kind of order. Is that why you have those? She gestured to the tattoos on his neck. He touched the ink unconsciously. Warnings. History. So people know what I am without me having to speak. And what are you? A necessary evil, he whispered. Suddenly, Dante's voice crackled over the radio. Boss. Bogey, at 3 o'clock. Black sedan. Circling. It's Kale's men. The atmosphere shattered. Arturo grabbed Mirella, shifting instantly from father to warlord. Move. Now. They were ushered out the back exit into the waiting SUVs. As they sped away, Melissa looked out the rear window. On the corner stood a man in a pristine white suit, leaning on a cane, watching them. He raised a hand in a mock salute. Who was that? Melissa asked, trembling. Lucius Kale. Arturo growled, his knuckles white on the door handle. The man who wants to burn my kingdom down. He saw us, Melissa whispered. He saw me. He saw nothing. Arturo lied. But in the rearview mirror his eyes met hers, and they both knew the truth. The wolf had found the scent. The library incident changed everything. The penthouse became a bunker. Windows were tinted darker. Security was doubled. Arturo disappeared for long stretches, returning late, smelling of ozone and copper. He was distant, snapping at everyone. Mirella regressed, her anxiety spiking. One rainy Tuesday at 2 a.m. Melissa was reading in the foyer, unable to sleep. The elevator chimed, and Arturo stumbled out. He shoved a hand against the closing doors, barking a command to someone inside the car. Stay down there. I don't want Mirella waking up to a field hospital. As the doors slid shut, hiding his security team, he turned and slumped against the wall. He was bleeding. A dark, wet stain spread across his white dress shirt. Arturo! Melissa dropped her book and ran to him. Don't, he grunted, his face gray. Don't touch me. I'm filthy. You're hurt, she countered, ignoring his command. She grabbed his good arm, pulling it over her shoulder. "Get to the study. I have the medical kit." "I don't need." "Shut up and sit down," she ordered. Arturo looked so shocked by her tone that he obeyed, sinking into the leather chair. Melissa worked quickly, cutting away the shirt. It was a knife wound, shallow but jagged. Her hands, usually so gentle with paper, were steady as she cleaned and stitched the skin. "You have done this before," Arturo noted through gritted teeth. "Sam was a clumsy kid," she murmured, tying off the stitch. "And I spent a lot of time reading old medical textbooks in the reference section." "Who did this?" she asked, looking up. "Cale is getting bold. He's encroaching on the shipping lanes. He thinks I am distracted." "Are you?" Melissa asked. They were inches apart. "Yes," Arturo admitted, his voice rough. "I am distracted. By a librarian who thinks she can stitch up a monster and not get blood on her hands." He reached out, cupping her cheek. His thumb brushed her lip, and the air in the room grew thin. Melissa stopped breathing. She wanted him to kiss her. She wanted to know what it felt like to be close to fire. "Papa?" Mirella's voice from the doorway shattered the moment. Arturo pulled away instantly, buttoning his jacket. Mirella stood there, clutching her rabbit, terrified. Her knees buckled. Melissa moved faster than Arturo, catching the girl before she hit the floor. "It's okay, Papa just—" Two slipped. Arturo watched them, the two women in his life huddled together. He realized Cale was right. He was distracted. He had something to lose now, and that made him weaker and more dangerous than he had ever been. A week later, Arturo insisted they attend a private gala at the City History Museum. It was a show of force. The other families needed to see the Marchesi line was strong. "We hide no longer," he declared, "but we will be careful." Melissa wore a midnight blue silk gown Arturo had commissioned. She felt like an imposter, but seeing Sam in a miniature tuxedo, grinning at the buffet, gave her strength. The museum was a dazzling display of wealth and hypocrisy. Men discussed murder while sipping champagne. Arturo kept a possessive hand on Melissa's lower back, guiding her through the shark tank. Mirella wore noise-canceling headphones, staying close to her father's side. "Enjoying the exhibit, Miss Walters?" The voice was silky, cultivated. Melissa turned to find the man in the white suit, Lucius Cale. Up close, his eyes were pale, almost colorless. I don't believe we've met," she stammered. "Oh, but I know you." Cale smiled, showing too many teeth. "The librarian, the Good Samaritan, and Samuel. He loves astronomy, doesn't he?" The blood drained from Melissa's face. "How do you know my brother's name?" "I know everything, my dear. I know you are the glue holding Arturo's fractured life together." He leaned in. "Tell me, does he know about your father's gambling debts? Or did he just pay them off without asking?" Arturo materialized between them, radiating violence. "Lucius, you are breathing my air. Just admiring your acquisitions, Arturo." Cale smirked, backing away. "Take care of them. Antique things break so easily." As Cale vanished into the crowd, Arturo grabbed Melissa's arm. "We are leaving, now. Security has been compromised." "He knows about Sam," Melissa whispered, tears of terror welling up. "Arturo," he threatened Sam. "I know," Arturo said grimly. "That was his mistake." But as they rushed toward the exit, chaos erupted. The fire alarm blared a distraction. Sprinklers hissed to life. Screams filled the hall. In the crush of bodies, Melissa reached for Sam's hand. She felt small fingers grip hers. She held tight, pushing through the panic toward the security team. It wasn't until they burst into the cool night air that she looked down. She was holding the hand of a stranger's child. Sam was gone. The scream that tore from Melissa's throat was a sound Arturo would never forget. It was primal, the sound of a heart being ripped out. "Sam! Samuel!" She tried to run back into the museum, but Dante caught her, holding her back as she thrashed. "He was right there. I had him. I had him." "Get her in the car!" Arturo roared, gun drawn, scanning the perimeter. "Lock it down. Find the boy. Someone on the inside let them get close." But a black van was already peeling away from the rear loading dock. Melissa watched it go, her legs giving out. Arturo caught her, pulling her into the SUV as they sped away from the disaster. Back at the penthouse, the silence was suffocating. Mirella was sedated in her room. Melissa sat on the couch, shivering in her wet dress, staring at nothing. "We will find him," Arturo said, pacing like a caged tiger, barking orders into his phone in rapid-fire Italian. "You promised," Melissa whispered, her voice broken glass. "You said he would be safe." Arturo stopped. He looked at her, and the pain on his face was raw. I failed. I underestimated Cale's reach inside my own organization. Failure doesn't bring him back. Melissa stood up, fury overriding her grief. She walked up to the most dangerous man in the city and shoved him. This is your fault. Your world. Your war. Sam is innocent. I know, Arturo shouted back, grabbing her wrists. And I will burn this city to ash to get him back. Do you understand? Nothing matters but this. The phone on the table rang. Unknown number. Arturo put it on speaker. Hello, Arturo. Cale's voice filled the room. If you touch him, Lucius. Tut tut. The boy is fine. He's telling me about the constellations. But I want the shipping manifests for the Eastern Dock. And the weapon routes. All of it. That is suicide, Arturo said. You are asking me to dismantle my organization. I am asking you to choose, Cale replied. Your empire. Or the librarian's heart. You have 3 hours. Meet me at the derelict yards. Come alone. Or the boy joins the stars. The line went dead. Arturo looked at Melissa. He didn't hesitate. Dante, get the manifests. Arturo, Melissa breathed. You can't. They will kill you. I told you, Arturo said, checking his weapon. I am a necessary evil. But for you, I will be just a man. The preparation was a blur of grim efficiency. Arturo stripped away the businessman, revealing the soldier. Kevlar vest, knives strapped to ankles, extra magazines. You stay here, Arturo ordered. Lock the doors. No, Melissa said. She had changed into jeans and dark clothes. She looked pale, but her eyes were steel. I'm coming. Absolutely not. It is a kill zone. He is my brother. He is scared. If he sees you, he sees a monster. If he sees me, he stays calm. You need me to keep him from panicking. Arturo stared at her. He saw the same defiance she had shown in the alleyway with Mirella. You are terrified, he noted. Yes. But I'm going. Arturo cursed, but nodded. Stay behind me. If I say run, you run. You save Samuel and you run. The drive to the derelict yards was silent. The city lights faded into the skeletal shapes of rusted cranes. It was the same district where Melissa had found Mirella a full circle. Why? Melissa asked in the darkness. Why give up everything for us? Arturo reached across the console, taking her hand. His grip was bruisingly tight. You are the only person who ever looked at me and didn't see a paycheck or a predator. You saw a father. You saved my daughter. Now I save your son. Brother, she corrected, a tear slipping down. He is yours, Arturo said, and you are mine. The car stopped. The yards lay ahead, a maze of fog and shadows. Time to go, Arturo said, releasing her hand. Stay close. The meeting point was a clearing between massive shipping containers, illuminated by blinding floodlights. Lucius Cale stood in the center, flanked by 6 armed men. Sam was kneeling on the wet asphalt, a gun pressed to his head. He was crying silently. Sam! Melissa cried out, lunging forward, but Arturo held her back with an iron arm. I have the manifests, Arturo shouted, holding up a drive. Let the boy go. Toss it, Cale commanded. Arturo threw the drive. It skittered to Cale's feet. A henchman checked it. It's all there. Excellent, Cale smiled. His eyes gleefully locked on Arturo's defeat. Kill them. No, Melissa screamed. Arturo moved with blinding speed. He threw a flashbang grenade he had palmed. Boom! The world went white. Run! Arturo roared, shoving Melissa toward Sam. Gunfire erupted. Arturo dove behind a container, returning fire. Melissa scrambled across the open ground, bullets sparking off the pavement. She reached Sam, shielding his body with hers. Melissa, Sam sobbed. Stay down, she yelled, pressing his face into the wet asphalt. Arturo was pinned down, outnumbered. He took out 2 men, but he was running out of ammo. Melissa looked up through the smoke. She saw Cale standing exposed, aiming carefully at Arturo's position. Ignoring the woman and child he deemed harmless, he was savoring the moment, waiting for the perfect kill shot on his rival. She didn't think. She grabbed a rusted length of pipe from the ground. While Cale was focused entirely on ending Arturo, Melissa moved. She used the chaos and the fog to her advantage. The deafening roar of the firefight masked her footsteps. She wasn't a fighter, but she was a sister protecting her own. She swung the pipe with all her desperate strength, smashing Cale in the back of the knee. He buckled with a cry of surprise, his shot going wide. He spun around, backhanding Melissa. She flew backward, tasting blood. Dazed, Kale raised his gun to finish her, his face twisted in shock and rage. Bang. A single shot rang out. Red mist sprayed into the air. Kale collapsed, a hole in his forehead. Arturo stood 20 feet away, smoking gun lowered. He had walked into open fire to take the shot the moment Kale turned his attention to Melissa. The remaining guards hesitated, their morale shattered by the sudden loss of their leader. That cost them. Dante and the backup team, circling the perimeter, opened fire. It was over in seconds. Arturo ran to Melissa. She was sitting up, dizzy, holding her swelling cheek. "Melissa." He fell to his knees, checking her frantically. "Look at me. I'm okay," she coughed. "I hit him. Did you see? I hit him with a pipe." Arturo let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. He pulled her and Sam into a crushingly tight embrace. "You hit him with a pipe, you crazy, beautiful fool." Recovery was slow. The bruises on Melissa's face faded from purple to yellow. Sam had nightmares for weeks, requiring late-night therapy sessions that Arturo paid for without question. But slowly, the fear receded. Arturo bought him a telescope to see Saturn's rings, and they spent nights on the terrace reclaiming the darkness, turning it from something scary into something vast and beautiful. The fallout from Kale's death sparked a power vacuum that cost Arturo significant territory, but he didn't seem to care. He spent more time at home. The golden cage had changed. The windows were open. Music played. 6 weeks later, Melissa stood in the library, packing a box. Her contract was done. Sam was safe, though still quiet. "What are you doing?" Arturo stood in the doorway, wearing a cashmere sweater, looking younger. "Packing," Melissa said, not looking at him. "The assignment is done. Morella is stable. Sam is. Getting better." "I see." Arturo walked in. "And you? Ready to go back to the damp apartment?" "It's my life, Arturo. This is a fantasy. And fantasies end." "This isn't a fantasy," Arturo said, taking the book from her hand. "This is a family. It's messy and dangerous, but it works." "I can't work for you anymore," Melissa said, tears pricking. "I can't be your employee. Not after everything." "I agree," Arturo said. He turned her to face him. "I don't want an employee. I want the woman who saved my daughter. I want the librarian who charged a gunman with a pipe. I want the woman who taught me that even monsters can have happy endings." "Arturo." "Stay," he whispered, echoing the first night, but with a new meaning. "Not as a guardian, as my partner, as my equal." Melissa looked up at him. She traced the tattoo on his neck. She didn't feel fear anymore. She felt home. "Sam needs a ride to the Science Academy every morning," she smiled. "I'll have the driver ready," Arturo smirked. "And Morella needs to finish The Hobbit. I would be disappointed if she didn't." Melissa leaned up and kissed him. It was a promise, a binding contract stronger than any business deal. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." Outside, the city lights flickered, no longer ominous shadows, but a sea of stars that belonged to them.
Hey there, if you've made it to the end and haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time to become part of this family. Also, do tell me in the comments what struck you most about the story. What was the greatest lesson it left you? I try to read all the comments, and I love knowing how these stories move you. Finally, I just want to say, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed it, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.